We are holding in the middle of Perek Mem Tas. We are holding on page 138. Welcome back to all the regulars who missed last week for happy occasions, for happy reasons. So to recap where we are right now. The larger topic over here is the topic of Avas Hashem, which we started talking about in Perek Mem Gimel. The subtopic over here is a specific Ava for Hashem, which we arrive at through Kamayim Hapanim Lapanim Kein Lev Ha'adam La'adam, by contemplating and understanding and realizing and paying attention to the tremendous Ava that Hashem has to us, which Shlomo HaMelech tells us human nature is that hearts reflect one another, and therefore if we observe another person's tremendous, the truth is it's any emotion. If a person is angry at us, we'll be angry back at them. If a person is upset at us, a person is mad at us. But the same thing is true, obviously also in the positive sense, that if one heart has a tremendous love towards another, that automatically is reciprocated. And in as much that Hashem has so much love to us, if we only pay attention to how much love Hashem has to us, automatically we will be awakened and to have a tremendous ahava back to Hashem. And this is the topic which we started in Perek Mem Vav. So in Perek Mem Vav Mem Zayin, we focused on the idea of Yitzias Mitzrayim, the tremendous love that Hashem has for us, that He swooped down into a depraved land, into immoral land, into Eretz Mitzrayim, which was Ervas Haaretz. And we were there in that spiritual garbage dump. And we were covered also in the filth. In other words, we weren't just there, but we were pristine and we were holy. We were in Memtesh Shari Tuma, but Hashem, He swooped down and took us out of Mitzrayim, which shows His tremendous love for us. And then as we continued on in Perek Mem Zayin, this is not something just which happened once. It's not a one-time event which happened 3,300 years ago. But Yitzias Mitzrayim is an ongoing event because we are always in Mitzrayim. Every one of us is in Mitzrayim. The constrictions of the klipa of our body, of the nefesh bahamis. And on a daily basis, when we learn Torah, when we do mitzvahs, and specifically when we daven and we say Shema, then Hashem takes us out of that, and Hashem brings us up to Him and enters into an amazing level of relationship with us, of kiddishanu b'mitzvahs, of a complete yichud, and elevates us up to the level of the Ein Sof. That was Perek Vav and Perek Mem Zayin. And Perek Mem Ches, we started this new idea, which is, not only did Hashem take us out of Mitzrayim, but in fact, the whole creation of the world was only for us. Ahavas oilam ahavtanu. Why do we say ahavas oilam ahavtanu? Why not Ava Rabba? According to the Nusach Hari, where we say ahavas oilam, Ava Rabba seems to signify a tremendous madrega of love. But Avas oilam tells us that Hashem has so much Ava for us, that He created a oilam, He created a world. The whole world was created for us, and everything that Hashem had to do, all that was entailed in creating the world. We're not only talking about the physical process, but we're talking about all the infinite amount of tzimtzumim and the contractions of Hashem's light, and how Hashem had to push everything aside and disregard everything, and disregard even the highest malachim and everything. Why? Because Hashem loves me and you and you and you and you, and Hashem wants to have a relationship with us. Hashem wants to elevate us up to His level, to become one with Him. That's why the Eibishter created the world. And Dr. Rebbe says that this is the idea of the Birchas Kriya Shema. The first Dr. Rebbe asks, why are they called Birchas Kriya Shema? The brachas that we say before Kriya Shema, a normal bracha, we say Asher Kedeshanu b'mitzvah v'tzivhanu Al Mikra Megillah, right? Or Lisatif Batzitzis. But why are these called Birchas Kriya Shema? And as we said last week, the Rashba says they're not really Birchas, they're not really associated. V'haraya, if you say Kriya Shema, you have to go back and you have to say the brachas again. Even though usually when you do a mitzvah, and if you didn't say the bracha, you can't go back and say the bracha, you missed the opportunity. But if here, even if you said Shema, you didn't miss the opportunity. You still have to say the brachas, because they're only somewhat loosely connected. So if they're only loosely connected, why are they called Birchas Kriya Shema? And why are we supposed to say them before Shema? So Dr. Rebbe says, the point of Shema, the crux of Shema, is that when we get to the pasuk, V'yahavtas Hashem Elokecha, b'chol levavcha, v'chol nafshecha, v'chol meidecha, we should be there. I know that we've said this story in the past. I believe so. We said the story about the Maggid and his friend. We said the story here.
2 weeks ago, yeah.
No, I didn't say 2 weeks ago. A few weeks ago, maybe.
Few weeks.
You guys know the story? The Maggid and his friend. They remember? Okay. When we're davening, it's not only that we're saying the words, but we're actually supposed to be at that point where we are. When we say V'yahavtas Hashem alikacha, we're supposed to be at a place of V'yahavtas Hashem alikacha. B'chol avavcha, v'chol nafshecha, v'chol meidecha, which means that all those things that are precious to us in our life should not in any way distract us from our love for Hashem. So as Dr. Rebbe says last week, B'chol levavcha means your wife and your children. They're very, very important to us. They're very, very dear to our heart. V'yahavtas Hashem alikacha, we have to love Hashem b'chol levavcha. Despite that love cannot in any way interfere in our love for Hashem. B'chol nafshecha, we love our life very much. But that love can't interfere and can't get in the way of our love for Hashem. B'chol meidecha, all our money, whatever it is. We have to be in a place where we disregard everything and our love is focused on Hashem. How do we get there? So the Birchas Krishma, which we say beforehand, that's how we get there. First we talk about all the precious things that Hashem has. We have a wife and children and money in our life. Hashem has shrafim, v'chayes, v'ifanim. He has all the sarim from above, and the sun and the moon. And we talk about how they say Kaddish, 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 and Baruch Kved Hashem. And Oimdim be'ema ve'emrim be'yira. These are servants that are completely devoted to Hashem. Oisim be'ema ritzoin koinam. But nevertheless, Hashem loves us. Hashem puts aside everything, all the things that are good and important, and His Ava is dafka for us. So that's why, and we reciprocate by that regardless of what we have going on in our life, our love is for Hashem. That's our primary love. So the first bracha of Krishma is talking about the Malachim and is talking about all the great heavenly servants of Hashem. And we're like, by the time we're finished, we say Yetzer HaMa'iras, we're feeling so insignificant. You say the bracha. Hashem makes the sun, He makes the moon, and all the malachim. Yetzer Mesharsim, Hashem Mesharsav. Kulam Ma'imdim B'ru Mo'elam. We're talking about these greatest of creatures, and by the time we finish the bracha, we're feeling mamish like losers. Here we are, lowly beings, with a Yetzer Hara, with an Nefesh Bahamis, with physical desires. We barely think about the Eibishter compared to the malachim, who the whole day, what do? They're consumed with love for Hashem and fear for Hashem. And what does the next bracha begin with? Despite the fact that Hashem has all those malachim and the whole Pamal Yeshamayla, who does Hashem love? Avas Oilam Aftanu, Hashem loves us. He loves us so much that Avas Oilam, the whole world was created for us. Chamla Gedela V'Yisera, He loves us more. Gedela V'Yisera, more than anything. And that's 2 lines in the bottom of page 138. This is what we say. Chemla Gedela V'Yisera. A much greater compassion. Pirush. What does that mean? Yisera al kirvas alikim shebechol tzva ma'ila. Hashem, His connection, His relationship, His love, His feelings for us are much greater than anything in the higher worlds. That's what we learned last week.
All the things that had a birkat, like birkat hachama, birkat alvana, birkat hanehenim, is the same.
Yeah, but that's different because those are all birchas hanen. Birchas hanen means that when you drink something, you eat something, when you have hana. Then there's birchas hamitzvahs. Before you do a mitzvah, you have to make a bracha. Krishma is a mitzvah. So you would think that birchas Krishma is like a normal bracha on a mitzvah, but it isn't. Instead, it's actually birchas Krishma. The 2 brachas are getting you into the mood. They're getting you into that emotional space that when you get to Shema, you're taka holding by Shema.
But it's not ma'akiv though. He didn't say.
It's not ma'akiv, right? It's not ma'akiv, but that's why the Chacham were misakin it. Chacham were misakin that it's Mediraisa. The mitzvah is only Shema. But in the Chachamim in the later generations, they saw that people are saying Shema, they're saying Vahafta, and they're not there. So the Chachamim said we have to add some brachas beforehand. And when we add the brachas beforehand, that will allow the person, by the time he says V'yahafta, like that he's holding by V'yahafta.
Warm up.
Yeah, it's a warm up. And then we continue. Ubanu bacharta mikolam v'lashin. We continue in the bracha, and we say the Eibishter that you chose us from all the nations. And here we're going to learn two lines over here. We're going to spend a lot of time on these two lines. If you're learning Tanya just casually, you can almost miss these two lines and miss the significance. But we are going to learn now a very foundational idea in Chassidus, which is in these two lines. Says the Alter Rebbe, when it says Ubanu bacharta mikolam v'lashin, when it says that Hashem chose us, hu haguf hachumri, that's talking about the corporeal body, hanidme b'chumriyusay legufei umas ha'olam, which in its corporeality is similar to the bodies of the goyim.
Should be so.
When we say Uvanu v'charta, when we say that Hashem chose us, says the Alter Rebbe, we're not talking about the neshama. Hashem didn't choose our neshamas. What did Hashem choose?
The guf.
Hashem chose our guf. That the guf of a yid is a guf kadosh.
What good is the guf without the neshama?
That's a good question, and as we go on, hopefully that question will be answered. So to understand this idea, you have to understand first of all the idea of Bechira, what exactly Bechira is. But before then, we know the Ubanu Bacharta happened by Matan Torah. When did Hashem choose us? By Matan Torah. This is brought down in Halacha. In Birchas, it's brought down, the Magen Avram brings down, that we know there are 6 things, the Sheish Chiris, there are 6 things that we're supposed to remember every single day, and all of them are alluded to in the end of the bracha of Avas Elam, all 6. One of the things that we're supposed to remember all the time is Matan Torah, and where is that alluded to? Says the Magen Avram in Ubanu Bacharta Mikolam V'Lashin. When did Hashem choose us? Hashem chose us by Matan Torah. Which that raises a question. Hashem chose us by Matan Torah? Sorry? By Avraham Avinu. And by the way, before we get to that, there's another there's something else. The Avud Raham says, we know that on Yom Tov we say Ata v'chartanu mikol ha'am. Why do we say Ata v'chartanu on Yom Tov? Why don't we say it on Shabbos? Why don't we say Ata v'chartanu on Shabbos? So the Avud Raham explains that Shabbos we were given in Mara, which was before Matan Torah. So it was before the Bechira of Hashem and Klal Yisrael. So therefore on Shabbos we don't say Ata v'chartanu. Yom Tov, it's part of the mitzvahs that we were given by Matan Torah, when there was the Ata v'chartanu. So therefore on Yom Tov we say Ata v'chartanu, but not on Shabbos.
Nice.
So, Sheldon, what's your name?
Yeah.
Sheldon says, what do you mean? What's with Avraham Avinu? And even without getting to Avraham Avinu, 7 weeks before Matan Torah, Hashem took us out of Mitzrayim. Why did He took us out of Mitzrayim if He hadn't chosen us? So He takes us out of Mitzrayim, He does the 10 Makis, He splits the sea, gives us man, and then 7 weeks later He says, you know what, I'm choosing you guys, I like you. If He didn't like us before then,
He wouldn't take you out.
right? And Bechal, we know that already Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, Hashem already told them, you know, that promised that Eretz Yisrael to their descendants. So what does it mean when we say that Ubanu Bacharta Mekol Am V'Lashin means Matan Torah?
You say it on Shabbos, though. Why do you say we don't say it on Shabbos?
We say what?
We say Ava Rabba on Shabbos.
Yeah, but the Ata v'chartanu mikol amim, it's not. We say Ubanu Bacharta as part of the daily davening, but it's not part of the special Shabbos davening. It is part of the Yom Tov davening. As part of the bracha.
Shmon Esrei.
Yeah. We don't say right.
In Ava Rabba we do say it.
Just like we do every day, but on Yom Tov we also add Ata v'chartanu. On Shabbos we don't. So the Avud Raham explains that that's why. But that obviously that raises well, what does it mean? That raises the question. What does it mean that the Bechira of Hashem and Klal Yisrael was only by Matan Torah? That seems to defy the pashtus of what happened. So the Rebbe tells us like this. The Bechira of Hashem in Klal Yisrael is not in the Neshamas. The Bechira is in the Gufim. And the Bechira in the Guf, in the body of the Yid, is what happened by Matan Torah. When we say Ata v'chartanu, we're not talking about the Neshama, but rather we're talking about the Guf. There's actually a pasuk in Parshas Ekev, where the Eibishter says, Ki am kodesh ata la Hashem elikecha. Well, you always finish my psukim when I start them. U'b'cha bachar Hashem, right? Ki am kodesh ata la Hashem elikecha, u'b'cha bachar Hashem. So you're a holy nation, and Hashem chose you. So Rashi says, Am Kaddish, you have the Kedusha of your Avis, and you have your own Kedusha. And in addition, Ubacha Bachar Hashem, in addition to the fact that you're holy, that you're Am Kaddish, which that is mitzad the Neshama, we're Am Kaddish because we have a Neshama. In addition to that, Ubacha Bachar Hashem, Hashem chose us, and that is because of the Guf. Why is Bechira Dafke in the Guf and not in the Neshama? And that's because the essential understanding of Bechira, of choice, is that you have two things that are equal to each other, and you choose one over the other. In an instance where there are two things that are unequal to each other, then you can't say really that there was choice. And since the neshama of a yid and the nefesh of a goy, there is no comparison. One is a chelak alekam imal, and one is klipa. So therefore here we can't say that Hashem chose. That makes no sense. The way we understand usually choice, the way we usually understand choice, is that if I have two things, and if I choose this one over that one, that's exercising my choice. But that's a very, very shallow idea. And in a deeper level, what is the idea of choice? The idea of choice is an expression of myself. I choose. This is what I want. So if person A walks over to person B, and person A sticks a gun to person B's head and says, your money or your life. Okay, so now person B has free choice, right? Money, life, money. You know what? I'm going to choose to give you my money. Here's my money. That's my free choice. Is that free choice? It's not free choice. Sorry? He was compelled. The person was compelled to answer that. It was under duress. If I have a fresh apple and a moldy apple in front of me, do I have free choice? Whenever there are two entities and they're unequal, one of them is a better choice than the other one, then it's not that I am choosing one over the other. The choice is being made for me. I would make that choice, you would make that choice. There's nothing unique about the fact that I'm choosing. I'm not expressing my individuality and my uniqueness and my like. This is a logic. The logic is compelling me. So for example, just like if person A is smacking person B and says, do that, and person B does it because he's receiving klep, he's getting hit. You're not going to say that's the free choice of the person. In a similar way, if my mind has a stick and is saying, you have to take the fresh apple, not the moldy apple, that's not free choice. That's not me expressing myself and what I want. So where do we express Bechira? Bechira is when you have two things that are the same. There is no reason for me to take one over the other. There is nothing outside of me that's compelling me either way. So I'm going to make a choice. Where does that choice come? Not from outside of me, but that's because that's what I want. When Hashem was looking at the neshamas and saying, should I choose the Yid and the Goyim? There is no choice over there. Yid are Am Kodesh, ki Am Kodesh ata l'Hashem Elokecha. So of course the Eibishter loves us. Why? Because we have the Chelek Alekam Imal. We are the Eibishter. The Neshama is the ben of the Eibishter. Is the child of the Eibishter. Of course he's going to love us. Where is the free choice?
Guf.
The free choice is in the Guf. Where Hashem looks at the Guf of a Yid and the Guf of a Goy and says, it's the exact same thing. So why should Hashem prefer the Guf of a Yid over the Guf of a Goy? There is no reason. I just want to point out that this is something which by us is almost impossible to experience. This idea, Bechira Chavshis in the simple sense. We'll talk a little later more about where we can experience Bechira Chavshis. Because what would be an example of Bechira Chavshis? Again, if I have a moldy apple and a fresh apple, that's not Bechira Chavshis. What if I have two apples that are the exact same? It's also not Bechira Chavshis. We spoke about this once.
An orange or an apple.
An orange or apple. Okay, so it's an orange or apple bechira chavshis. What?
There's not a bechira. It's always even panemius. There's always some reason why you choose one or another. Psychologically, you grew up, whatever reason. There's always something.
I'm going to get to that later. I'm going to negate that later. But let's say you have two apples in front of you and they're the exact same. So is that bechira chavshis? It would seem so, but it's not.
Why not?
Why not? Because let's say you had two apples in front of you, and you chose one, and then I walked over to you and I took away that apple, and I said, "No, you're going to take the other one." How upset would you be?
Not much.
It's the same.
You might be upset, by the way, me a little, just for interfering and whatever. But are you upset that you have this apple and not? No. I chose the other apple. Don't give me this apple. You don't care. So when you choose one apple over the other, that's not bechira. It's a lack of bechira. It's because I don't care less. So ini mini mini mo. Ini mini mini mo is not bechira chavshis, which is really what we do. And it's not that Hashem said ini mini mini mo yidn or goyim. What's the last word of ini mini mini mo? My mother says, right? It landed on Klal Yisrael. Okay, so no. So what would be an example, a little of bechira chavshis, is if you take a 2-year-old child and take 2 red lollipops and which one do you want? The kid's not going to say whichever one. Not a 2-year-old. Not a 2-year-old. A 2-year-old will point to one. Okay, you give him that. Now let's say you take away that one, you give him the other one. What's going to happen?
Go to a tantrum.
Throw a tantrum. Why? It's the same thing. But because by us, we are so used to making our decisions in life based on seichel that when seichel doesn't tell us what to do, we're paralyzed almost. We don't know what to do. Okay, so we'll do the ini mini mini mo. By the way, it's one of the most difficult things. It happened to me tonight. My wife asked me, "What do you want for supper?" And she gave me 3 options. And I'm like, "They're all good. Whatever you want." And she said, No. You have to tell me which one you want. I'm like, "They're all good." Okay. I did ini mini mini mo, and I chose one. But by a child, it's different. Why? Because by us, we're so used to everything being so calculated. By a child, no, I want that lollipop. Why do I want that lollipop? Because
There's no logic to it either.
it's about me. It's not about the lollipop. This is a very important thing because bechira is about me. Bechira is, this is what I want. It's not that there's an advantage to one lollipop over the other, but I decided I want this one. And therefore, to me, that's bechira is about me. And bechira, so Hashem chose the gufim of Klal Yisrael. Our guf is a guf kaddish. And this is, by the way, this is...
So why did you choose that lollipop?
Why did Hashem choose the lollipop?
Why does the kid choose that one?
There is something about the kid. Okay, I want you to leave it alone. I want you to leave it alone because we'll be... By the time we finish this conversation, I think you'll have a better understanding of the entire topic. In the Sikha, Shabbos Parshas Bereshis, Tafshin and Beis, 27 years ago, Parshas Bereshis, the Rebbe spoke about this Perik in Tanya. The Rebbe notes something, that the words that the Rebbe uses over here, he says that Hashem chose the Guf HaChumri, the corporeal body. Hanidme b'chumri yusoi, which due to its chumrius, its corporeality, is nidma is similar to L'gufei U'Misa'olam, to the bodies of the Goyim.
Obviously it's not.
What?
Obviously it's not.
It is.
It is the same.
It's the same. If it wasn't the same, there wouldn't be Bechira. Bechira means that this is the Eibishter, there's no reason why. Hold the thought for a moment. The usual word that we use when we're talking about the body is Gashmias, not Chumrius. Even in Tanya, it's an unusual word for the Alter Rebbe to use. But yet over here, the Alter Rebbe uses the word Chumrius twice. So the Rebbe explains that the emes is that the guf of a yid is more edel than the guf of a goy. The gashmius of a yid is more edel than the gashmius of a goy. Partially because a yid eats kosher, and therefore the guf of a yid is klipas naigan. The guf of a goy is gimel klipas hatmeis, because goyim eat treif and yidden don't eat treif. But the chumrius is the lowest element of the gashmius. Within Gashmis, the Chumri is the lowest element. It's like the Yisayda offer within it. In the Chumri is Taka, is Nidma. Gufa Chumri, I Nidma b'Chumri Yisay, the Gufa Yom Yisaylam. So even in the Gashmis of a Yid, we can't say real Bechira by Hashem, because there's an advantage of the Guf of a Yid over the Guf of a Goy. Where do we see Taka, the ultimate Bechira in the Guf is not in the Gashmis, but in the Chumri. In the very lowest level of the Guf, we are Taka, It's the exact same, the Yid and the Goy. That's where we see the ultimate Bechira of Hashem. And this over here is part of the larger conversation about Avas Hashem, the Ava that Hashem has for us, and Kamayim Hapanim Lapanim. When we realize how much Hashem loves our neshama, that also elicits an incredible love back from us to Hashem. But it's nothing compared to when we realize that Hashem loves us not only mitzad our neshama, Hashem loves us mitzad our guf.
What's inside the guf that he likes?
It's not about you, it's about him. That's a very important thing to understand about Bechira. If there was something about the guf that had a maila, then it wouldn't be Bechira anymore. Bechira means it's something that I want. I want you. The moment that you're different and therefore there's something compelling me in one way, it's not about me anymore, it's about you. To use an example, but it's an inexact example, I want to point out, for reasons we're not going to get into right now. The love of a parent to a child. Why does a parent love a child? Well, baby is born. I find it very interesting. Maybe some of you can relate to this. As soon as a baby is born in the mishpacha, automatically everyone gets sent a picture, look at it like, oh, that's pretty ugly. And all the women in the family are all fawning over it, the most cutest thing, unbelievable. I think it takes like 6 months for a baby to become cute. Good. But that's someone else's baby. Your own baby, the moment the baby is born, the father has this incredible love for it, the mother has this incredible love for it. What is it about the baby that the parent likes?
Part of me.
Sorry?
It's part of me.
So it's about me, not about it. We're so used that everything I like is because there's something about it. There's another type of love where it's not about it, it's about me. The baby doesn't do there's nothing different between this baby and any other baby. It didn't do anything to earn any nachas, it didn't do anything to earn any love. But this is the one who I love. Why? Because of me. It's nothing to do with the baby. It's all about me. It's an inexact mashal, because really that's a mashal for the love of the neshama, not the love of the guf. But that's already splitting hairs over here. But I'm just trying to bring a dugma, an example of a tremendous love, but the love is not... Now, what is the advantage the guf enjoys over the neshama? And this is really something incredible that we're going to have over here. There's actually an advantage the guf has over the neshama, because the bechira of Hashem is dafke in the guf. And by the way, the kedusha of the guf, of a Yiddish guf, is something which is based on that. We know even after the neshama leaves the body, we have to accord a tremendous amount of respect to the guf of a Yid. And that's why there's a mitzvah to bury a body right away. And one way of looking at it is because many mitzvahs were done with the guf. But the guf has a kedusha even without the mitzvahs. The guf of a Yid is a guf kaddish. The bechira of the Eibishter is dafke in the guf of a Yid. It has its own kedusha. And in a way the kedusha is even greater. And why is that? Because as mentioned earlier, why does Hashem love the neshama? Not because he chose it, because of its maila, because of its greatness, because of its holiness. So how much does Hashem love the neshama? As great as the neshama is, as holy as it is, as much love as it earns and as much love as it deserves. Whenever you enjoy, love something based on that thing's qualities, so then your love is commensurate, corresponds to that thing's qualities. How great will the love be? How great are the qualities? But what if the love is not for any reason? It's not because of its qualities. The love is because, again, it's about Hashem, it's not about us. It's not because we earned it in any way, it's about Hashem. Then how great is the love? as great as Hashem is. So the ava which is inherent in the bechira, in the guf, to a certain extent is greater than the ava the Eibishter has even for the neshama. And this is what we're saying in the brachas of Kriya Shema. Before Kriya Shema, we're trying to talk about how much Hashem loves us. Ava Soilam Aftanu. So in addition to the Ki'am Kadesh Ata L'Hashem Alikecha, the fact that even before the world was created, it was B'Shvil Yisrael, B'Shvil HaTorah, B'Shvil Yisrael, that was our neshamas. And the Ava that Hashem has for our for the neshamas of Yidden is incredible. And even more than that is Ubanu B'Charta. And that love is absolutely unchanging.
It's infinite.
It can't change. Why? Because we didn't do anything to earn it, so we can't do anything to unearn it.
What?
We didn't do anything to earn it, so we can't do anything to unearn it. It's an essential bechira. This is what Hashem wanted. This is the ava that Hashem has for us.
So that love is greater than the love for the neshama, you say?
In a certain way, yeah.
So why is the guf perishable if the love is so much and the neshama is eternal?
That's why when Mashiach comes, the neshama that's in Gan Eden for 2,000 years, 3,000 years, it's coming back down into the guf.
It's the same guf or a different guf that's not perishable?
Into the same guf.
But that guf is perishable.
It's not perishable. It's coming back. It's going to be No, but it's that's why you have to. That's one of the reasons for Tchias HaMesim. Is because of the mile of the guf. The Bechir is in the guf. You have to have. That's a big question. The Ramban talks about it. Why do you need Tchias HaMesim? What do you need it for? What's wrong if the neshama is in Gan Eden and enjoying everything? But the answer is that there's a mile in the guf of a Yid.
So that the guf after Tchias HaMesim would not be perishable. It would be totally a different quality than what we have now.
Our guf,
It's the same guf, but
No, our
the
guf-
quality will be different.
the guf be'etzem is not supposed to be perishable. When Hashem created us, we weren't perishable. There was a chet etzadas, there was a glitch in the system. The glitch will be fixed, and we're back to the way we were.
I hear a little bit better.
Sorry?
I hear a little bit better.
Okay.
In the history, always you
get
see
to it?
the Goyim like to destroy Jewish cemetery. The only one from the whole world that they like to destroy is the Jewish cemetery. You never see Goyim fight with other Goyim that they go destroy the cemetery. Never see Jewish Goy to destroy. In other words, they feel that our body, even if it's buried, has something holy.
I hear there's something, the Mazlayu Chazi, the Goyim,
Something.
they send something.
We never see Jewish people go to Gaza or somewhere and
That's a great cemetery. Yes.
So they know that they feel something in it. And even by going to a Goy, you never see a Goy to a Goy destroy a cemetery.
Right, it's not a thing.
Never history.
Yeah. So let's talk a little more about Bechira, also to analyze a little of the questions that you were asking, and also to answer a larger question about Bechira Chavshis, which is we know when Mashiach comes, there won't be any more Yetzer Hara. The Eibishter is taking the Yetzer Hara, is going to shecht it. So Chazal tell us. So l'chera, there isn't any more Bechira Chavshis. There isn't any more choice. Why is that a good thing? The Rambam in Shmeina Prakim talks about the mile of the human being. What distinguishes the human being from all other creations? When we say all the creations, we're talking about physical creations, we're talking about malachim, is that the human being has Bechira Chavshis. So what's going to happen? Mashiach's going to come, and we're going to be stripped. It would seem we will be stripped of our most precious and defining feature. What distinguishes the human being from the animal? Qualitatively, not only quantitatively. So we're a little smarter, to say that. A lot smarter. Even that's only, they're smart, we're smarter. What distinguishes the human being is the idea of Bechira Chavshis. Mashiach comes, there's no more Bechira Chavshis. How does that work?
Or it's Tzaddik today.
We're at Tzaddik today, yep. So let me ask you, so we spoke before about two apples. You have to choose between two apples. So someone else brought up in the back over there, what if I'm choosing not between two apples, between an apple and an orange? Bechira, that's bechira. There's no rational reason for me to take an apple or an orange. I'm taking it because that's what I want. Or if I'm going to the store and there's a gray suit and a pink suit. Okay, that's not a good example because I don't have really much of an option to take a pink suit. But let's say,
Black and gray.
I don't know if they're inviting me back to give a shir if I walk in with a pink suit. But there's a black suit and a gray suit, a blue suit and a suit with pinstripes, a suit without pinstripes. And I choose one over the other. Is that bechira? In other words, there are really three different levels. Level number one is there are two choices that are unequal because one is an objectively better choice than the other. Moldy apple versus fresh apple. Money or your life. Right? Those are that's not free choice. The answer is answered for me. It's not about me expressing my individuality. It's not about me in any way, shape, or form. It's about the answer is clear, objectively clear. It's an objective truth that's outside of me, and it's not about me expressing myself. Then there's another instance where you have two apples, so it's the exact same thing. But now I'm giving you a middle example. Middle example is that an apple and an orange, or blue suit, gray suit? Is that bechira? If you're going to say that's bechira, if you're going to say that when I choose the blue suit over the gray suit, that's bechira, then are animals also bali bechira? Think about that for a second. Don't answer so quick. If you put in front of a squirrel an acorn or a peanut, and it looks at one and chooses the other one, does it have bechira? Why not?
There's reason why it's choosing one. Same with your blacks and the grays.
Okay, so it's not bechira.
Google knows what you're going to choose. No, really. Google knows what you're going to choose.
Okay, so what we have over here is that animals also seem to have choice, but we definitely do not accept them as bali bechira. Why? Because they are compelled by their teva, which is a little deeper than when I have a moldy apple and a regular apple, where there I'm compelled by an idea which is outside of me, by objective value. Sometimes I'm making a choice based on objective value. This is not about me asserting my taste or preference at all. It's about objective value. Then there's my nature. But when I am compelled to act by my nature, that's also not bechira chavshis. It's definitely more bechira than the case of the moldy apple versus the fresh. In other words, me choosing a blue suit over a gray suit, you could argue is more bechira. It's more an expression of me than me choosing a fresh apple over a moldy apple. But that's not bechira in its truest form. Ramesha, when you have a moment, you can bring me Hayem Yem, please. And why is that? So what is the thank you. So what is the ultimate bechira? The ultimate bechira, and that's what makes the human being the human being. And in this way we mirror Hashem. We're talking about B'Tselem Elokim. This is something which we have and Hashem has. The ultimate bechira is that I'm free to act even against my nature. And that an animal doesn't have. And that a psychologist will tell you perhaps that everything that we do is absolutely predictable and that Google can predict. And Google can predict most of the time. But Teiras Emes comes along and when it says, Re'ei nasati l'fanecha sachayim v'satoy v'samav v'sara u'bacharta b'chayim, the Eibusher is telling, don't listen to your anthropology books, and don't listen to your psychology books, and don't listen to Google. And I am telling you that regardless of what your nature is, because you're a human being who possesses bechira chavshis, therefore you absolutely are not bound by your nature. Which is why Torah says if you do a mitzvah, you're rewarded. And if you do an avera, you're punished. And if we're going to say you're bound by your nature, then that makes no sense. And the Rambam talks about this at length in Hilchos Tshuva. The whole concept of reward and punishment, and the Rambam says, don't believe that which the tipshim of the world say, and also some Gilmi B'nai Yisrael. You're familiar with that Rambam? That a person is programmed, and that some people are programmed to be tzaddikim, and some people are programmed to be Rishonim. You should know it's absolutely incorrect. The notion of Bechira Chavshis is not only that I'm not bound. Bechira Chavshis doesn't only mean that I have seichel and I know what's better and what's worse for me, and that I can choose that. It also means that I'm not bound by my nature. So if, again, going back to the example, if I choose the blue over the gray, that's my nature. That's not my essential Bechira Chavshis. In that way, I'm still like an animal, or like a malach, which is my nature is determining what I should take. The essence of Bechira Chavshis is when you go beyond your nature. It's the expression of your neshama which is beyond its nature. Because at the end of the day, the essence of the neshama is not defined by nature. Essence of the neshama is beyond its nature. And therefore, any nature that you have, if you're making a choice from that level, you're not making the choice from the deepest part of who you are. When you're making a choice from the deepest part of who you are, the deepest expression of yourself, the deepest expression is putting aside, there is no reason, it's not about nature, I'm doing it simply because this is me, at the very core of me, this is what I want. That's the ultimate Bechira. And although it sounds nifleis or choika, it sounds very, very distant. And by the way, that's why you're going to say about the apples before, that's why you didn't like the examples of the apples, and to a certain extent you're right. And by the kid, you could say the kid is programmed by nature to get upset when he doesn't get what he wants. But at the end of the day, the ultimate Bechira is in the area of Torah and mitzvahs. And that's the Eibusha tells every single Yid, you have Bechira. Bechira means that you can choose regardless of any seichel and regardless of any, what your nature might be telling you, you can always express your essential self and override everything. Sorry? It's not a pashta thing. Goyim don't essentially have Bechira. They have a limited Bechira regarding 7 Mitzvah Noach, but it's not on the same level as the Bechira of a Yid. And I'm not going to go into there because I don't really understand. I mean, this is a very, 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 very deep sugya. But there are definitely places where it talks about that the only real Bechira is by Yidden because we are taka, ultimate reflection of Hashem, and we have that within us. Mitzad Achilek Elokam Imam. So when Mashiach comes, what we understand now is that choice, what is choice essentially? Choice is not about how many objects I have in front of me. What is choice? Choice is me expressing my truest desire. When I say my truest desire, not what Seichel tells me to choose, not even what my nature, what I'm programmed to want, but deeper than that, what my very essence is looking for. And the Eibusher says, you always have the freedom to do that. A Yid always has the freedom, regardless of how many things you have going against you, nature and nurture. A Yid, because you're a human being and because you're a Yid, you have the koyach to put everything aside, ubacharta b'chaim, and to be becher in life. When Mashiach comes, what's going to happen? We are all going to be serving Hashem, but why? Not because the seichel reasons, or not only because of the seichel reasons, and not only because our teva tells us to, but it's going to be the ultimate expression of our deepest desire, of our bechira in Hashem. So of course we're not going to do averis. Why? Because we're being becher in Hashem. The fact that we're not doing averis is not because we don't have Bechira Chavshis, but because we have Bechira Chavshis. And our deepest Bechira will be revealed when Mashiach comes. And ultimately, if you go down and you reach the depths of a Yid, what does a Yid want? What is a Yid Becher? A Yid is Becher Hashem. The problem is that sometimes that Bechira B'yas is hidden. And our avodah here in this world is to reveal that Bechira. And when Mashiach comes, that will be revealed. So of course, Of course, when Moshiach comes, we're not taking away our Bechira, meaning we will still be distinctly human beings, as defined by the fact that we're not limited by our nature, whether I'm a Baal Chesed, Baal Gvura, whether I have this character, that type of character, and we're not bound by Seichel, but rather we are doing that which emanates from the deepest part of who we are. And correspondingly, by Hashem, and when Mashiach comes, that's when the ultimate Bechira and Hashem and us will be revealed, and vice versa. And we have to understand that the Bechira of Hashem, which is the deepest place of Hashem, even more so again, we said before about that the Neshama is a ben to Hashem. The problem with the Neshama is that it is the nature of a father to love a child. That's not Bechira. But an animal also loves its child. That's not Bechira. Bechira is deeper than that. So Hashem Kaviyachol naturally loves the neshama. He naturally loves the neshama. The guf Hashem doesn't naturally love. He's not bound by that. That's something which in the very atzmus of Hashem, in the very essence of Hashem, Hashem decided, this is who I want. Why the guf of the Yid, why not the guf of the Goy? There is no reason for that. And it didn't have to be that way. It was unnecessary. We could have been Hashem's beloved nation without the Ubana Bacharta. And we have a neshama, which is a holy neshama, and then the guf is special because it's the container of the neshama. We didn't need that. We could have been Yidden for 4,000 years without that. But Matan Torah introduced an entirely new idea, that the guf has this Bechira of Hashem, and not because it's the container of the neshama. That's already a reason. Simply because Hashem chooses the guf of a Yid. So there's the sefer called Hayom Yom, which the Rebbe compiled in 1943 with a Chassidic idea, aphorism for every single day. And the aphorism for Chav Tes El, Erev Rosh Hashanah, which is a very important day, the last day of the year, is Mipiskami Rabbeinu Hazaken. This is a piskam, a vart from the Alter Rebbe, the Baal Tanya. Men hat gar kein Hasaga nit, wie es ist tired by Hashem Yisbarach der Guf von Ayiden. We have zero concept, we have no idea just how precious by Hashem is the body of a Yid. How precious is the body of a Yid. And that's something, when we contemplate that, by Birchas Krishma, when we say, Uvano v'charta makalam v'lashen, that adds a whole new flavor to our Ava to Hashem. That Hashem loves us so much, not only our neshama, but our guf. And what did we do to deserve this love? Nothing. It's absolute bechira, which is mushish. Chassidus explains, this is rooted in the atzmus of Hashem, and the essence of Hashem is Hashem's love for you, and not only your neshama, but your guf also. And then we continue. The V'kei Raftano, 2 lines from the second line from the top of page 9. And then we continue in Birchas Krishma, V'kei Raftano v'chulum. And the Eibishter brought us close. L'hoidos v'chulum. To be l'hoidos. What is l'hoidos? Or Pirush Haidah. The idea of Haidah, Yizbar b'makam acher, will be explained elsewhere. But in general, the idea of Haidah is something which is very central to Yidden. What makes it so central to us, to who we are?
We always say the opposite of that.
Is that what?
We always say the opposite without the other person say.
We always say the opposite.
Not moide.
I understand. But it's essential to us because that's who we are. We are called Jews.
Mm-hmm.
We're called Yidden, Yehudim. And the word Yehuda, the word Yehudi comes from Yehuda. Hapam, which comes from Hapam Oida. Hapam Oida is Hashem. The whole Yidden, the whole idea of... And what is the idea of Haidah is explained elsewhere in Chassidus. So Haidah means to acknowledge, or to be Moida. Moida means, like you're saying, Moida means to admit, or to concede. Haidah means to concede. So the Eibishter, Hashem gave us the gift of V'kei Raftano Malkeinu. He brought us close, L'shimcha Gadol, Be'ava with love, L'hoidus L'cha, that we can concede to you. Despite the fact that we have a guf, which as we mentioned earlier is nidma b'chumr yusay legufay umasa'elam. We have a lowly guf. Our guf is so lowly, there's absolutely no distinction between it and the guf of a goy. And we have a guf, we have an Nefesh Bahamas. But the Eibishter gave us the power to concede, to say moida ani lefanecha. That even though we might not see it, we might not perceive it, we might not understand it, we might not be able to relate it, a Yid says moida ani. A Yid says is hoida, hoidu LaHashem. The idea of conceding to Hashem, that's a gift that Hashem gave us. And we're defined by that. That's our name, hoida. That we're able to concede to Hashem, we're able to put aside everything that our perception tells us, and everything that we see, and everything that we understand, and say, Hashem, you're the one. Your perception is right. The way you see things is correct. I think I mentioned this in the past. That there's a chassid in Crown Heights, the grandfather of Rabbi Merazov here, Rabbi Mendel Merazov. He passed away a year ago, and
Last week was a year.
2 weeks ago. Rosh Chodesh Shvat was his year set. Yeah, 3 weeks ago already. 4. Anyways, so I heard from Avart a few times that with davening we say, "V'ata Hashem Elokeinu moedim anachnu lach." So Pashup Pshat. Moedim is lashon to think, because the word Haidah can also mean to think. It can mean to think. But he said, it means that now Hashem we concede to you. We're moeded to you. The whole day we run around and we're thinking that koichi v'esim yadi, if I work a little more, I'll make a little more money. And we think that what's important in life is money and fame and honor and pleasure and privilege and all these things. And we run around chasing shtusim the whole day. And it's not only we're chasing, our minds are messed up. Our minds are pashat messed up. To one degree or another. Now some of us are holier and some of us are better and some of us our minds are a little less messed up and some of us our minds are a little more messed up. But the bottom line is we run around the whole day in pursuit of trivialities, of hevel avalim, and under the impression that we can make money and that we're the ones that we're in control. And then we come to davening, we say no. L'cha Hashem ha'gdula v'ha'gevura v'ha'teferes. And then we continue, right? U'biyadcha koyechu gedula. Everything is in your hands. U'biyadcha legadei l'chazik l'kel. You're the one who makes everything great. You're the one who makes everything strong. It's nothing to do with us. And v'ata l'keinu. Now that I'm sitting and davening, moedim anachnu lach. Now I'm conceding, I'm admitting that everything I thought yesterday was a lie. And now I'm conceding that you're right and I'm wrong. Moedim alashon like Beshama is moeded to Beisilo. And that's the koyach of Haidah. That Yid has the koyach of Haidah to be able to concede to Hashem. And that's elementary to our Yiddishkeit. It's the beginning of Avodah. It's always the beginning of Avodah. That's why the first words we say in the morning is Moida Ani. The first words of davening, if you daven Nuschari or Nusach Sfarin, is Hoidu LaHashem. Hoidu, the idea of Haidah is the beginning. You're still at a place of distance from Hashem, but even when you're in a place of distance, we have the ability of Haidah. Regardless of our spiritual state, even when we're in a lowly spiritual state, we woke up in the morning, we didn't even wash Nagelvasser, our hands are still tameh, the first thing we say is, Moida Ani. That ability to concede to Hashem, regardless of our spiritual state, is a gift from Hashem to us. So the first thing is that we have the ability to be moida, to have haidah, to have bittul to Hashem. Bittul means to put ourselves aside and concede. And then we continue. That's not enough. Haidah is not enough. Then we're moving on. What's the next level? What does it mean? To become subsumed in Hashem's unity, as mentioned earlier, and that obviously is a higher level than Haidah. Haidah is, I'm here and you, Hashem, are over there, but I'm going to concede to you. Aliyachedcha is the idea of through Torah mitzvahs, we become absolutely one with Hashem, one with Rebbeinu Shalom. And what do we do right away after we say Lahoidus L'chol Yachedcha? We say Shema Yisrael. Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad, and we're taka reaching that place of Likalo B'Yichudai, to be nichla, subsumed in Hashem's unity. V'hinei kasher yasim hamaskil eila hadvarim al umka deliva u'moicham. When the thinking person thinks into these ideas, thinks into them deeply, as I'm a male, then automatically kemayim hapanim lapanim. Like water reflects a face, tislai nafshe. His neshama will become ablaze. V'tislabish beruach nedivan. Automatically, the neshama will become in a gracious spirit. Lihisnadiv, to volunteer lahaniach v'laziv kol asher lo minega, to leave behind everything aside. V'rak l'davka b'yisbarach, and the person's entire aspiration should be only to connect to Hashem, u'likalal b'oirei, and to become subsumed in Hashem's light, b'deveka, chasheka, v'chulu, with a desire to attach the bechinas nishikin, kissing Hashem, which as I mentioned, we kiss Hashem through saying words of the Torah, v'zdapkus rucha berucha kanal, and connecting our spirit with Hashem's spirit, as mentioned earlier, and that is through understanding words of Torah. So with this, we've actually concluded. We still have a section left in Perek Mem Tes, which we're going to do next week. But with this, we concluded the larger topic which we started in Perek Mem Vav, but also the smaller topic we started in Perek Mem Ches, which is the idea of coming to love the Eibishter by realizing how the Eibishter, despite all the great things and all the different priorities that he has, and the Eir Ein Sof and the Malachim and all the worlds, they're all nothing to Hashem. They're all nothing. He has tunnel vision. Despite all the important things that are there, the great things that are there, his ava is only for us. His ava is for us. His ava is for our neshama. His ava is for our guf. And when we think about that, we reciprocate in kind with tunnel vision to Hashem. And that despite there's so many other competitions for our affections, there's so many other things in life, and they're important things that demand, that vie for our attention and for our care. And many of them, as we discussed last week, al pi Torah, we have to have affection and care for them. But at the end of the day, nothing can take away from that tunnel vision that the ultimate aspiration of a Yid is to love Hashem and to connect to Hashem. And why? Is simply reflecting back at Him that love which He has for us. Good Shabbos and a good Chodesh.